Hi, good morning. Thank you all for coming. This morning I am going to be reviewing or giving you guys a summary of my literature review on the sustainable management of spring water collection, some of the impacts, challenges, and then future strategies that we can implement to prevent over-extraction. So, how this ties into the course's objectives, well, I started by considering our field trip to the spring water collection facility here in Provo. I wanted to focus my project on literature that examined the effects of capturing specifically here in Provo. But I found that as I was doing my research, I chose to look at a more broad perspective and see how it affects worldwide. So this would allow me to focus on one of the learning objectives, which is natural resources and water systems locally and abroad. So that's also personal curiosity. I just wanted to know. So I chose to break it down into three sections. Impacts and challenges are kind of clumped together, and then we have the strategies. So I'll get to the strategies later, but I'm going to start with the impacts. And here are two of the biggest takeaways from my research was that reduced flow from the springs to the surrounding surface water can cause a major decrease in stream flow, and this affects water quality. Studies showed that not only that, but as the surface water depleted, so did it caused a huge change in vegetation type, and I'll get to that in a minute. Also, as lower flows became more prevalent, concentration of toxins and pollutants were increased, and so, but this is all logical. This makes sense if we think about it from a perspective. Here we have a roadway, a bikeway right next to the Provo River, Provo Canyon, during low flow season. So some of the ecological impacts that I mentioned earlier was that not super applicable to immediately outside of the mouth of the canyon, but when we get closer to Utah Lake, it affects wetlands and riparian zones. They suffer from reduced water availability, which can affect the biodiversity. We noticed that in several instances. And then as I was researching, I mentioned a change in the vegetation. There's a higher correlation of desert plants in areas that used to be more wooded. They tend to pop up and become invasive species as the surface water is affected by the extraction of spring water. We also noticed, in the research I also noticed that there was an effect on the groundwater replenishment, but I did not research enough into that to be able to express that to you guys here. So some of the things that we could do to counteract over-extraction. Here are some strategies that were recommended in the literature. Regulatory frameworks is more specific to policies and things that we can do to make sure that we're governing our resources well. One of the biggest, the ideas most prevalent in some of the research was the implementing strict permitting processes for extraction. The county or the water districts, for example, in Provo, could implement a very strict permitting process which would prevent Provo from drawing too much. And then in our example, we could also pull more from Orem. It would cause water prices for residents. It would cause the water usage to cost more, but in doing so, we could limit the amount of groundwater that we are extracting. Another thing was technological innovations. As with every problem, technology can be a solution. Real-time monitoring systems were implemented in Bryce Canyon, and I say real-time as a very loose term. The paper called them real-time, but they checked monthly flow rates, and then quarterly they checked for certain pollutants and things like that. So in Bryce Canyon, they're implementing this, and it's helped them navigate a little bit of the more arid climates water usage. While Provo is not as arid, it could be modeled similarly. Additionally, I love this picture of the Provo skyline. It's actually taken from my favorite spot in Provo, which is Slate Canyon, but that's beside the point. Community engagement is crucial. Conducting educational seminars and campaigns to help people understand better their water usage can reduce the amount of water extracted from the springs, and that, once again, logically, it just makes sense. Smarter people make smarter decisions, we hope. And then adaptive management strategies is one of the most important things that we could do. I mentioned earlier that in instances where we were over-extracting from the spring water, we could swing a little bit and purchase water from the Orem water facilities, and that would help us to manage, diversify a little bit, which would help us to prevent the over-extraction from spring water negatively affecting our and moral of the story is adapt, improvise, adapt, overcome. As the great Bear Grylls once said, this will help us to, that is not from my research, that is from me presenting. So to conclude, the key takeaways are that spring water extraction has significant impacts on hydrological systems, ecosystems, wildlife. Over-extraction disrupts the groundwater and surface water dynamics, degrades the ecosystems, and threatens wildlife reliant on stable water resources, as we saw with like the riparian zones and wetlands. These challenges highlight the urgent need for us to balance urban water needs with environmental conservation through proactive and informed management. Things that I would like to do moving forward research-wise is I would like to look more into how specifically Provo manages their water. I found some articles that I did not get the chance to look into that focus on Provo's use of spring water as well as river water, and so I wanted to, going forward, look into that more. So this has been my presentation. Thank you for your time. Have a great finals week.